All right, everybody, welcome back to the Here for the Truth podcast. My name is Joel Rafidi. I've got my co-host Yerasimos with me as always. Thank you for being here. Thank you for tuning in wherever you're listening or watching. We appreciate it. Today we have another incredible guest lined up. Ian Smith, a name that may be familiar. He gained notoriety during the scamdemic eras for keeping his New Jersey gym open against all the forces and the threats and the fear that was being projected by authoritarian entities at that time. He has an incredible story. Loved rehashing that journey that we all collectively shared on some ways, and in many ways, the people who began listening to this podcast joined us around that time, and you guys made hard decisions around that time, and I think many people who did have been very richly rewarded with more authenticity in their lives since. Before we bring Ian on, Rise Above the Herd round 9, the doors will officially close on Wednesday at 11:59 p.m. PST. So it's like, if you're listening to this as soon as it's released, like 3 days from now or less, it's done. So if you're down to go on this heroic journey, level up your life, have more purpose, have more meaning, feel better internally, externally, discover your power, then head to riseabovetheherd.co or hit the link in the show notes.
You are now listening to the Here for the Truth podcast, hosted by Joel Rafidi and Yerasimos.
Ian Smith is an entrepreneur who gained notoriety during 2020 for refusing to close his gym during the pandemic shutdowns. After his gym defied lockdowns and successfully stayed open, he ran for Congress in New Jersey. He's now a published author, owner of multiple businesses in the health space, a public speaker, political figure, men's coach, and father. Welcome to Here for the Truth, Ian. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Absolute pleasure, man. One way we always like to kick this one off is, I know you got a pretty rich story, so I want to dive a little bit into your hero's journey and some of, I guess, the more pivotal moments that kind of shaped you into the man that you are today.
Most of my story is not a hero's journey. I think that's one of the things I really try to, when you talk about it, like it's very easy to tell the story of like when you did well, right? Like when you did the right thing. But the majority of my life up until where I was sort of thrust into a spotlight, I was like the opposite of the hero's journey. I mean, I was the selfish, self-serving, sort of just man who didn't really have much of a purpose. And the purposes that I did have were shallow and sort of very superficial and very self-serving. And I finally just kind of got tired of my own shit, for lack of a better expression. And, I dove really deep and pushed all my chips in kind of on personal development and just becoming better. And that started with physical fitness for one, but especially really became the center of my life when I became an entrepreneur. In order to be successful as an entrepreneur, I needed to kind of get my act together. And the big pivotal moment was, I was a gym owner in 2019. I became a gym owner. I was a personal trainer. I worked at every gym that you could possibly think of and hated it, but loved personal training. So that's when I went out on my own and decided that I was not going to work for anybody, that wasn't going to be a workable model for my life. And I was a very successful personal trainer. I sort of blew up overnight, made my first 6 figures. I was doing well, but sort of on my own hamster wheel that I sort of created for myself, where the business model was doing well, but the business model was very limited. And I needed to get out of just trading my hours for transactional, work. So I bought a gym. My former partner and I bought a gym. It was a dumpster fire of a gym, like 6 months behind on his rent, had a very hostile environment that was not welcoming to newcomers, not welcoming to women, not really welcoming to anybody who, other than the sort of clique that was there. So my partner and I, we had a lot to do, but we knew very well that if we did the right thing, if we provided a valuable service to the community, and we treated people well and with respect, and were helpful and went above and beyond, just like, hey, give me $30 for your gym membership, and sign this contract, that we would be successful. And we were overnight. And that was a really good time. It was 9 months of riding a huge wave, and then COVID came, and the order to shut down was like this whisper at first. And, we all kind of remember the beginning of that story, where it seemed like something out of a dystopian sci-fi movie. Like, like I had never considered the idea of like martial law, like being anything other than just like, oh yeah, like, like the government could do that, but they never will. And then it's like, we heard these whispers of like, yeah, they're going to shut the country down. And we were like, what? And we were doing so well. We had taken this gym that was nothing and turned it into something very, very quickly. We were wildly successful. We had a great culture and great environment in the gym. And the last thing that we wanted to do was shut down our business. We had like so much to do. We were just turning this place inside out, and we had this vibrant culture, which gyms are, the gyms are a dime a dozen, but there's not a whole lot of, gyms that stand out. And there are some of them. There are quite a few of them, but gyms that stand out thrive on culture, right? People, a 45-pound plate weighs 45 pounds wherever you go. So it's not really, the equipment, it only goes so far. It's how do people feel when they go there? Do they feel inspired? Are they interested in becoming more and more, better? And that's the environment that we had. And all of a sudden, they said, shut your businesses down. And I remember we were like, we knew it was BS. We just didn't know why it was BS, so we weren't going to shut down. We weren't going to shut down. We weren't going to shut down. And then like everybody shut down, and we were like, okay, we don't know enough to confidently stay open. We don't like, we knew we were right, but like it wasn't 100%. And it was like, well, they're telling us that people are dropping dead. And they're telling us that like, you can be a spreader without without symptoms and all this stuff. And it was like, it was too much to decode right away. So we did shut down. And we paid attention very quickly. We wanted to know who was shutting us down. So we paid attention to politics, which I wasn't really kind of tuned into at the time. I was, like most people, I think, just enjoying like the feel-good nationalism under Trump and the cheap gas and the, the economic, quote unquote, prosperity. So we started paying attention to politics, and it didn't make sense right away. Why was Walmart open and we weren't? And we paid attention to the science, and the science didn't make sense either. They were telling us that people were dropping dead in the streets, except nobody I knew was sick. The real world seemed very different than what was on the TV. Like we were watching, like, I don't know if you remember those times, but like the videos of like people just dropping dead in China, like just walking down the street and just like falling and hitting the ground. And you look back at that now and you're like, oh my God, that was like the cheapest, like, that's like worse than the moon landing videos. So
it's as crazy as 4 years ago, man. Like it's just 4 years has passed.
Yeah. Whenever I tell the story, I laugh, like, cause I always remember different things as I'm like retelling it, and I remember like the toilet paper issue. Like it was like, like what? And you look back at it, but it was so hard to decipher what was going on at the time because it just comes at you so fast. So very quickly we decided, hey, we're going to reopen. And we did it very sort of meticulously. We didn't want to just be like, we knew that we were going to come under attack. We didn't know from who, we didn't know with what, but we knew that what we were going to do was going to be wildly unpopular, at least in the beginning. And we knew that there was going to be some sort of repercussions, and we knew that we were going to be put under a microscope. So we spent 6 weeks after the original 2 sort of planning this just absolutely absurd protocol to keep people safe, right? Because like we knew it was BS, like very quickly. My partner, to his credit, like just could decipher everything when it came to like the heavy science and dumb it down for me to where I was like, I was 100% sure that like not only was I not at risk for COVID or anything, but that I wasn't going to be doing any harm by opening the gym and allowing people to be healthy. Then common sense starts to kick in when that fear fog kind of that dissipates, and it's like, man, this is stupid, but we're going to do it anyway because we know we're going to come under fire. So we did this comprehensive safety protocol. We moved the entire gym around. Everything was 6 feet from everything. There was like markers on the floor in open flooring, so you could like stand and like do your dumbbell curls and know that like the guy next to you is like 6 feet 6 inches away. Every single person had their own spray bottle. We bought like 100 spray bottles and filled it with a peroxide based cleaner, that was safe, to be used around humans, but that quote unquote killed coronavirus. We had our HVAC system sort of upgraded with these MSV filters. I don't remember what they are, but apparently they killed coronavirus too. We had like a halftime throughout the day where we would shut the gym down and like come in with I forget what they were called. It's basically like a mister, and we like mist the whole gym in this same peroxide based solution. We had a capacity limit, which was like 40 people in the gym at once. I mean, you name it, we thought of it. Because we knew that if we could show the world how stupid this was, just from like a common sense standpoint, that we would be able to sort of garner some support and wake people up, because it was like everybody just threw common sense out the window. It's like you're sick, but you don't have symptoms. Like that's like, the stuff that people were believing was wild. Like never, ever in my entire life have I been sick without symptoms for anything. And then all of a sudden that was like a thing. So we just wanted to make it painfully obvious. And it was like, okay, so here's our plan. And we opened, and I made an announcement on my Instagram. It had a small following then, but I think it was the right message at the right time. I think it was like just at that point where, like I said, that initial like fog of fear, like most people were like rubbing that out of their eyes.
Was this like, when was this? Like May?
Yeah,
okay.
we opened 2 months to the day. So they shut us down on like March 16th or March 18th, and we reopened May 16th. But we made that announcement like a week before, and it was just right message, right time. There was enough people who were like just starting to get sick of it, and nobody had like jumped yet. You heard a couple stories here and there. There was like Shelly Luther in Texas. She opened up her salon, and she was giving the double barrel salute to the police down there, and they had like guys with guns coming outside and like standing outside saying like, "You shall not pass," kind of deal. So, but there was nothing in like blue states like New Jersey. It was just not happening. Like everybody was just like, just waiting. Everybody thought it was bullshit too. It's like all these small business owners that I knew, we were watching multi-generational businesses go out of business. So it was like, we knew what we were doing was right. And the video was both very well received and very poorly received. It was about 50-50 right down the center. Like we were getting death threats, and we were getting like people calling us like crying and being like, "Thank you for doing this." Like, it was such a range of people. Like we had like these wild people screaming into the phone, and like, we had like veterans from foreign wars and people in the like 80s and 90s, asking how they could help because they understood what this was, in a deeper sense. They understood that this was Bolshevism, that this was communism, that this was, a push to destroy the middle class. So, caught the attention of a gentleman named Tucker Carlson, and that was like the giant can of gas on our fire. Because there were other businesses that opened, but we got the attention of the entire world from that one episode, and subsequently from a whole bunch of others. And we opened the gym, and that is I guess the beginning of the hero's tale right there. Is that decision on May 16th, a Monday morning. We Governor Murphy had seen the Tucker Carlson interview. Obviously they joust back and forth, the political theater of all that. And Tucker asked me on that episode, he's like, "You're on the most watched cable news show in all of history in front of millions of viewers. He's like, are you prepared to defy your governor's orders?" And that was like a Friday, I think. that was the Tuesday before we opened, excuse me. And I was like, yep, yeah, we're doing it. And Governor Murphy was asked about it, and he used to give like this daily COVID press conference where they would tell you all the people that are dying, and all that. And even though they were all in like nursing homes and it was his fault, because he put sick patients in nursing homes and they were putting people on ventilators, whatever, that's another story. He would get up there and he would tell everybody, you got to stay home. And people said, what are you going to do about this gym that's going to open? And he said, I've talked to the Belmar police and they will not be allowed in the building on Monday. And we said, all right, bet. So we'll go in on Sunday night. When we went in, we sort of like snuck into our own building early, and we covered the paper or the walls, or excuse me, the windows with brown paper. And we locked the doors, and we like chained. There's this picture that it's one of my favorite pictures. It's like the door from the inside, and there's like brown paper on it, and there's like naval chains or whatever you call them, shipping chains, like those big, like, I mean, the links are thick. And we had that locked up, and it was me, my partner, our families, members of the gym, friends, just ready to like rock the next day. And we camped out. Nobody slept. We like meticulously prepared. I mean, the place was like squeaky clean. Like you could like eat off of the gym mats. It was so clean. And then we heard like the noise in the morning, and it was like, holy shit. We looked outside at like 4 a.m. and like the cavalry had arrived. Like we looked out, and it was like, holy shit, man, we're doing this. Like, and not only are we doing this, but like we got the homies here. Like like, like we look outside, and it's like all you saw was like American flags and like Gadsden flags. And at the time the Back the Blue crowd was there, even though that was kind of like ironic. You saw like your 3%er flags, your Sons of Liberty. There was Trump flags out there, and the parking lot was like full of hundreds of people. And it was just like, holy crap, like these aren't even our members. Like, oh my God, like we're about to get into some shit. And then it was like 7 o'clock in the morning. Pete Hegseth from Fox News called me. I just pick up the phone because my phone was just ringing off the hook. And it was like, at that point I was just picking up every call. Like it might be like, I hate you. And I'd be like, all right. And then like another one would be like, hey, I work in Governor Murphy's office. I can't tell you who I am, but expect this, this, and this. So it was like,
wow,
whatever. Yeah. Or it would be like, it would be a small business owner. Like somebody was like, hey, I have a cleaning business. I'll come clean your gym once a week, just to help you out if you're going to stay open, whatever. Or, hey, like I'll donate masks. Like everybody was trying to help in whatever capacity they could. So Pete Hegseth called, and he's like, yo, I'm Pete Hegseth from Fox News. And I'm like, I don't know who that is. And he's like, I'm the national correspondent. I'm outside on the front step. He's like, I work with Fox and Friends. He's like, you want to do an interview? And I'm like, well, I'm coming out the front door in about 10 minutes. And that's what we did. We opened the front door, and it's like, I still remember it was like that moment where, we looked at each other, me and my partner, and like we were unhooking the chains, and like, we just kind of looked at each other, and there was nothing to say. But it was just like pounded out, and like, let's do this. Let's do it. Like whatever's on the other side of that door, like let's face it, like, because we're gonna lose everything if we don't do this. Like we're gonna lose everything, and not just our business. Like we're gonna lose everything that we love if we bend the knee to these people. We flung those doors open, and it was like, like coming out of the cave, like it was all bright outside. And I remember kind of like looking out, and like the parking lot was just like, there was hundreds of people. And like, it was like when like one of those things you see somebody like leaving a courthouse, like every microphone is like right in their face. And we rocked out. That was it. It was like, then the war started. Like that was our first shot. We said, screw you. And, our members were lined up around the building. We had little X's on the ground. Like each X was 6 feet apart, and like people were like ready to go. Like they were out there from like 4 a.m. until like 8 waiting. And I'll never, ever, ever, ever forget this. First guy in line, was a guy who came to our gym, multiple tours in Iraq and Afghanistan, signed up to serve his country, obviously was mistreated and lied to, but this dude fought for his country and was like blown up twice, has seen and done things that like no man should ever really have to do, and did it and would happily do it again to protect the people that he loves. And he comes to the gym. He would come to the gym every single day, comes to the gym at like 7 a.m. every morning. And, he comes in and he leaves like several shades darker, because he's just drenched. Like he sweats through everything he has. And he absolutely just like crushes himself every day. But when he would leave, he was somebody with severe PTSD and addiction issues. And when he would leave, he would go home and he would be able, because of the gym, he would be able to be a father to his children and to be a husband to his wife. And without that, it was either alcohol or pills that the VA gave him, so that was his outlet. And he was the first person in line. And I remember he came up and he hugged both of us. And he said, this was something that like really kept us going. I always get like teared up when I say it. He was like, you don't know how close I was to calling it quits, like to ending it. You know what I mean? And like, it was like, man, we knew we were doing the right thing, but it was like, fuck, like now we can't quit. Like now we got to keep the gym open for him and everybody else that's like that. And that was it. That was the start of it. And then the punishment started and the fight started.
Well, that's the thing, man. I love that you told that story because, what was never taken into account was the mental impact of this whole thing.
Yeah.
The fact that, exercise and fitness, what does that do to your mental state? And so, yeah, let's close all the gyms and then let's leave everything else open that moves you closer and closer to your worst life possible.
Yep. Liquor stores were open. They even had like, the crazy thing is, and that was one of our reasons. Like we opened for a lot of reasons. Obviously we opened for self-preservation. I mean, like to claim that like this was just this altruistic thing, obviously is BS. Like we opened because we had to feed our family, but like we opened also because we knew like the gym that we owned was like a bunch of like roughnecks. Like it is regular people who come there, and like anybody who really goes to the gym and understands fitness understands that like it's not about like, oh, my muscles, like I gotta look good. Like that's always like, yeah, people want that, but even if that's their primary objective, which in most cases it's not, but even if that is their primary objective, like there's something underneath that of why, whether it's confidence or stress or anxiety. And it's like everybody that comes to the gym to feel better. Looking better is a consequence of wanting to feel better and be healthier, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, whatever. So that was something that was really important to us, was like, we knew that we had to do this because, like everything else didn't make sense. Like it was like, why can't people come and work out? But in Jersey, you could have takeout liquor. Like you could go to the bar and order drinks to go, like as if the liquor store wasn't enough. And like, it was like churches were shut down. But they had like strip clubs outside. Like what are we doing here? You know what I mean? Like schools were shut down, but you could go to McDonald's. Like that was fine. You couldn't go to an open air farmer's market. That was shut down, but you could go get a cheeseburger, that's not even made of beef, so it was so like once you saw it, like once you saw one thing, like it's almost like that, what's the movie They Live, where like when you put on the glasses, it was like, oh my God, this is all BS, and it's like because at first you're like, okay, maybe they're making a mistake, right? Maybe they're just overreacting. You know what I mean? And it's like, no, these people want the worst for you. Like they don't want anything good for you at all. And this is a play, to destroy you as an individual, as a family, as a community, as a business. Like they are trying to, like everything they did was made your situation worse. Socially, you weren't allowed to, You remember they were like, it was like, oh, you can't have Christmas dinner, or you can't have Thanksgiving dinner, or you
no
can't
more
have,
than 10 people.
you can't
Newsom
have
was like, no more than 10 people at Thanksgiving dinner.
And it's like, like, no way, dude, no way. And that was just, I mean, that was like part of our reasoning was like, man, like we know how bad this is impacting people mentally. And we understand that there is not just a connection, your physical and mental health are one. It's not a matter of, how one impacts the other. They're so intertwined that you can't pull them apart. And we just knew that it was the wrong move. So it was like we were able to step out of that door that day with such confidence. But with that story with the veteran, it was just like, man, we're doing the right thing here, and it's whatever comes is going to come because this is our opportunity to really do the right thing. So let's get it.
Yeah, and I mean, like, on top of that, for me, it was like, how would I feel about myself if I didn't act?
Yeah.
How could I live with that degree of inauthenticity, of that breach of integrity, just even internally? And for me, it was like, no, that's the most painful part of it.
Yeah. No, that was something that was considered heavily. It was my partner. I didn't have any children at the time, but I have a family. Partner has 5 children. And I remember we were sitting there one day and we were working the whole time. We had stuff to do around the gym and we were talking about reopening and just kind of like expressing some fears about it and whatever. And he was like, if I died today, he said, I would view my life as a failure, because of the world that I left my children, that if we stay closed and I die 6 months from now, he's like, I die a coward, basically. Mm-hmm. And it was like, when he said that, I remember being like, well, you're right. Like, you're right. Like, we can't, we know it's all BS and we know it's not fair and it's not right. And how can we, how can I stand in front of my maker one day and be like, sorry, I cowered in fear, when you tested me. And I had always taken the easy route my entire life. Whenever there was like a really hard choice, I always was like, not me. I'm not going to be the tallest blade of grass on this one. Like, I'll wait, and it was like, this was the first time where I was like, nah, I'll go. Like we'll go first. Like, there was a group of businesses that were supposed to open in New Jersey. It was supposed to be like 1,000 businesses. And, they wanted to open, they like kept pushing it back. And, my partner and I looked at each other and we're like, now let's just open, dude. We're like 2 months. We gave them 2 months. They asked for 2 weeks. We gave them 2 months. We're going on the 16th of May. We don't care what anybody else says. And like a lot of people got mad. They're like, no, we got to all go together. And it's like, no, we just got to go. Like, we just got to do this now or it's never going to happen because we're always going to find some sort of, well, I don't know, like, I don't want to get fined. I don't want to get my business license taken. I don't want to get, a ticket. So yeah, it's an integrity issue. If you are somebody who values the truth, a lot of times the truth is very uncomfortable. Sometimes it's scary. Sometimes it's unpleasant. Sometimes it's hard to swallow. Sometimes it's not what you want to hear or do. But the truth is the truth. And if you respect the truth and honor the truth, then you have an obligation to live that as well. You can't be like, yeah, like I speak the truth, but I wear the mask as well. Like, you can't subscribe or you can't do things that are wrong, just to avoid some sort of discomfort in your life. And that was a conscious choice that we had to make, where it was like, okay, like, we're going to stand up for what's right and we're going to get our heads bashed in because of it. Yeah. But we're standing up for what's right. And that's okay. And especially if we can show that to the world.
Yeah. Yeah. And even like valuing the truth, yes, but like valuing one's life. Like, this is a declaration of war on your livelihood. So how does one respond to that?
Yeah. It's the, it's the bully on the playground. Yeah. Like, are you going to live your life by other people's decisions? Or are you going to live your life according to your own?
Yeah.
You know, or are you going to hand over your lunch money and then have to do it every day for the rest of your life, you know, to avoid one moment of conflict? Are you like, is that what you're made of? Are you just, you know, do you have you have nothing, no integrity there? Do you not value your freedom that you're not willing to say, go ahead, punch me in the face. You're still not getting my lunch money.
Yeah.
You know, like, I'll punch you back.
Well, I'm curious because you said like, okay, I've taken the easy road most of my life, and this whole COVID thing with your gym was like a moment of truth. But like, what happened in between, like internally, like to shift for you? I know you said you got into personal development work, but what was it where you went from being this person who, I mean, I know you have a little bit of a history and you know, maybe doing things that weren't ideal or filled with integrity, and then shifting and moving into this person that is living with more integrity?
Good question. You know, I think a big part of it is like I was just sick of my own nonsense. You know, because it's like you can only lie to yourself for so long, right? You know, we all have lied to ourselves, and we all, you know, still do at times. But like, eventually, you don't even believe your own lie. You know, and I was lying to myself for a lot of my life. You know, I was lying to myself that I was this confident man. I was lying to myself that I was like tough. I was lying to myself that I wasn't selfish, and that like, you know, like it's just a dog eat dog world kind of like mentality. And it was like, eventually those lies like kind of ran out of steam. And this was just like a pivotal moment where it was like, hey, like you said you're sick of this, and like, you don't believe it, you know, because we could have like opened the back door, you know, and like there were a lot, and that's no offense to anybody, but that's not the right move. You know, there was a lot of gyms and places that like stayed open secretively. You know, and it's like, we could have done that. We could have been like, yeah, like we'll make rent and we'll just wait it on out, you know, but it was like, nah, man, stand up for yourself. Like go into that confrontation and see what you're made of, you know, like, and it was, you know, I equate it to like a spiritual experience. Cause I remember, you know, toying with the idea of being like, do I want to do this? Like, I'm already a convicted felon. You know, like I already got a felony. I've already been to prison before this. You know, it's like, do I want to risk my freedom for everybody else? You know, or should I just open my back door, make enough to cover the rent, get my $600 a month or whatever they were giving out, $600 a week of unemployment? And it was like, nah, man, nah, that's not the answer here. And it was one of those things where like I could almost call it the hand of God on my shoulder. That was like, it was almost like, it wasn't a hand on my shoulder like I got you. It was like a hand on my shoulder, and it was like your boy pushing you like, you know, forward. Go talk to that girl, dude. Like, you know what I mean? Your boy's like, go, come on, stop being a punk.
Yeah, it's like this is the moment. You know, it just feels like there's this opportune moment where like you were called and you were given a choice. You're going to answer or you're not going to answer, you know, and you answered.
And it helped knowing that, at least in some respect, that like being 100% certain that this was the right thing. Yeah. Also being 100% certain that like, if we didn't do this, we helped, you know, like this was wrong. We didn't understand it to the extent that I understand it today, but we understood that like this, in some way, this was insidious, and this was malicious, and this was evil, and this was dark. It felt dark. I remember like being out around that time when like everybody was in the house, and I remember like driving to work and being like, this just feels heavy and like not okay. And it was something I couldn't avoid. So it was like, when you're so sure of something and you've lied to yourself for so long, it was just this, it was a pivotal moment. And I saw it was like, hey, you have messed up almost every big decision that has ever come your way. How about you try something different, you know, for once in your life? And it was like, it was one of those moments where it was like, you know what? Why not? Why not? You know, why not? I have this opportunity. You know, I have something that people want. People want to come to the gym. You know, I have a partner who is on the same page as me. Like everything was lined up. All I needed to do was be like, let's go, let's do it. And, you know, that hand on the shoulder was just there. And it was like, go, like push you out the door, get out of here. And then once you make the decision, and you like that first initial step is the hardest. As soon as you get hit, you realize how tough you are and how strong you are and how resourceful you are. And all of these positive things come out of that, like that step into something that you fear, you know? And that's an experience that I think everybody needs to experience. I mean, that's one of the things that changed me more than anything.
I mean, the ancient wisdom tells us the obstacle is the way.
Yeah. It's simply put, it really is. It's that first step. You know, you get punched in the face as soon as you walk out the door. You get some tickets. You know, that was the first thing. They gave us some citations, and then we were like, "What's this? Like, what else you got?" You know what I mean? Like, I thought you were gonna shoot me. You know, like, well, come on, like, what else you got? And then it was like, you know, as it escalates, then like the next day we got more citations, and then like our customers got citations, and they weren't scared. You know, and like people were like ripping them up in the parking lot, taking pictures with them, fucking putting them on like Instagram. And then it was like, oh wait, we're on to something here. And it's like, and then at that point, like you got a bloody lip and you're like, what else?
At that point, power's increasing. You know, you're just realizing how strong you are. Like you're turning Super Saiyan almost. You know, it's like, what the fuck?
It was probably one of the most just unreal feelings I have ever had, because you go from like questioning and doubting yourself and having all these like fears to having like none.
Yeah. Exactly.
And being able to be afraid, or being able to see fear and recognize like, whoa, this is a scary moment, but like, let's go. Let's like hit me. Come on. Like, and
I can only imagine what you were feeling like before you went out the front gates, you know, like what you were feeling at that moment, you know, and even again, like you said, man, like even more of a testament to who you are, the fact that you did have a record, that there was so much more at stake for you in making this decision, just says a lot about you, man. And like, obviously much respect.
Thank you. Yeah. You know, I had lost my freedom once, so I was scared to lose my freedom, right? I was scared to lose my freedom to get in trouble, but I was also scared to lose my freedom by giving it away, you know? So it was like, I found myself between this rock and this hard place where it was like, if I do something, they might take my freedom. But if I give them my freedom, I might as well fight. Like, let's go. You know what I mean? Like rock in a hard place. You see it for what it is. Like you have to be, I think one of the most important things is to be truly honest with ourselves, you know, like brutally honest, because you can't make good decisions. And that's probably why I never made good decisions in the past. You know, I was never honest with myself.
Yeah.
But when I was honest with myself and what was going on, it was like, no, this is undeniably bad. I can't be like, maybe they got this messed up. I'm like, no, I've read everything there is to read. It's very clear that these people are lying, and they're profiting from this lying, and they're hurting people, and they're literally killing people. Yeah, I got to do this. And that's, you know, that honesty goes a long, long way.
I hear you, man. I can relate. I was in Sydney at the time, and, you know, I was very outspoken against everything that was going on. I received 4 individual fines from the government. I had police knocking on my door all the time. Whenever a new protest would be like, oh, Joel, you're not going to go, are you? Watching my house, etc., etc. I was living through 23-hour curfews. You know, we could only leave the house for 1 hour per day. In the hour, you had to be exercising. If you weren't mobile, then you'd be fined. Right. So I was almost arrested for being immobile during my hour outside the house. And all these fines started coming in, and it's like, you know, what are you going to do? You know, for me, it was like, I'm not going to pay them. I'd feel like absolute shit doing that. I'm not going to pay someone else to fight it for me. I'd feel even worse. Like, why do I need to pay a lawyer to justify, you know, this bullshit fine in the first place? So I went the route of, you know, figuring things out myself. And I remember walking into the courtroom, you know, going to fight the first initial fine, and just like all the uncertainty, like all the pressure, like all the pangs, like, and back then, man, the threats were like, oh, you could go arrested, you could get thrown in jail. Yeah. The $1,000 could turn into like $50,000. You know, so much was at risk, like all these horror stories. Then I walked in there, and they at the moment I rocked up, they pretty much dropped their case, you know, and just that feeling, that rush. Like I looked at all the police officers and all the lawyers, and it's like, you guys are fucking nothing. You're fucking nothing, man. I walked out of that courtroom, I just felt like I was on absolute fire. Then I went and did that 3 more times with the other 4 fines and was like, you guys have got nothing.
Yeah, well, once it's a combination of like once you realize that like that you can withstand more
Yeah.
than you thought, but it's also you're like, well, wait, like this is all fear. Like none of this is really real.
That's their weapon.
Like,
that's the only weapon they wield.
That's the weapon. It's like and they can, there are some things that they can do, like whatever, like they can hit you with fines, like we had money seized. But like even the things that they wind up doing compared to the things that they threaten are like, they're minuscule. You know what I mean? Like it was like, oh, you could go to jail. Like it was 5 years in jail, was like one of the things that we were fighting. And it's like, we got like 1 year probation. We were like, okay, yeah, give us probation. Why not? Like, and then, we get to probation and the guy's like, yeah, so I don't know why you're here. I guess just call me once a month, and it's like, okay, like, but I was so afraid of that 5 years, we were like, oh my God, like 5 years. And then we were like, no, like, let's just go fight it. Like, screw them. And we'd go in the court and we would go into the courtroom the same way. Like, I remember when we were fighting that particular 5 years, we had to go to court physically. And like we went with bonds in our pocket, like, money, because we were like, we're not wearing a mask in the courtroom. Like we're not playing your game. And like we had cash on us to be able to cash our own bail. Because it was like, hey, we're here. If you don't let us in, oh well, we're gonna go in and you're gonna give us contempt of court and lock us up. And it was like we were scared, and then we get there and like the cops are like, you need a mask. And it's like, no. And they're like, oh, wait, you're the guys from the gym, right? And I was like, yep. And they're like, the one guy's like, I like what you guys are doing. And I'm like,
wow.
Cool, bro. I'm like, I don't like what you're doing right now. So,
it's literally like the wizard behind the curtain, it's like,
yeah, you go into the courtroom and the judge is like, I don't care. It's like, okay. And then they're like, all right, well, how do we resolve this? We're like, I don't know. Fucking, what's your offer? They're like 1 year probation. Give it to me. Like, we got other stuff to do. Like, we got a gym to run. You know what I mean? It's like, cool. No fines. All right, cool. We're out. See you later. But yeah, it's facing that fear. You realize how strong you are and how fake that fear really is. And it can control you. It can control your entire life. If you don't get the balls to just say, I'm not gonna, or even if you're afraid, like you're allowed to be afraid, it's not about like not having fear. It's about doing the right thing regardless of how scared you are or how uncertain the outcome is. It's just doing the right thing that is the right thing and saying, I don't care what you do to me. I don't care what you threaten me with. I am a free, sovereign individual. You don't rule over me, I don't care what your little position is. I don't care where your office is. I'm not doing anybody any harm, right? We're legitimately not hurting anybody. And your rules are stupid and they're arbitrary and you don't even follow them. And they're not laws, they're mandates, they're all these other things. Everything that you're doing is illegitimate. So, go ahead, do your worst. And they're like, it's like, like,
yeah, exactly.
It turns out to be a big nothing every single time.
Yeah.
Well, they expect everyone to go along with it, and then you have like less than 0.5% that don't, and they don't know what to do with that.
Now a short break from the episode.
You got one life to live. Ultimately, what are you doing with it? As you're hearing this story, you may be thinking about what's that thing that you can do? What's that one choice that you can do to take your life to the next level? And as you know, Joel and I, we have Rise Above the Herd. It's our 8-week group coaching program. And, no bullshit. We just want people to win in life. We want people to succeed. We want people to have healthy relationships. We want people to be doing fulfilling work that they love, that they're passionate about. And that's why we do what we do. So March 26th is when we're launching. 8 weeks. You got Joel, you got myself, you got Sophie Fletcher, who's a nervous system expert. We cover a lot in these 8 weeks. So go to riseabovetheherd.co and you can read all about the program and you can read all the testimonials from everyone that has gone through this program already. And would love to see you in there.
Yeah. This is the absolute final curtain call for round 9. Launches in a couple of days. So if you're down, if you're willing to answer the call, let's go.
Back to the episode.
The more that you defy them, the more that they don't know what to do, because like most of these people, especially like, when it comes to like the politicians, so like the face of this stuff, like these people have never been in a conflict. They don't rule by like strength, right? They don't rule by like, this isn't Genghis Khan, like rolling into your village and like, he's like, what's up? I own you now. And you're like, they got a lot of knives and I don't have any. Like these are people that like, they operate in the shadows, and they hide behind like laws and bureaucracy and, all of this stuff. So like when you test them, they short circuit. They don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And then they just start acting erratically. Like, one of my favorite stories. So we had a lot of people, like I said, on the inside who would like help us. We had a lot of police that were very much on our side that protected us. And there was this woman who worked in Governor Murphy's office in some capacity. And she would send us anonymous emails all the time from a random Proton mail every time. And it would be like tips and tricks and whatever. So the day that they had boarded up our doors, they arrested us and they boarded up our doors, and we came back in and we kicked the doors in, like, in this big spectacle. And we were on Tucker Carlson that night, showing us kicking the doors in. And the next day I get an email and it's like, she had, I forget what her name was. It was like, she called herself like Betty or something like that. And she's like, hey, just wanted to share something with you. You must have really got to him because there's banging, crashing, and cursing coming from his office.
Wow.
And it was like, we were like, oh man, like,
that's the biggest win.
Yeah. And it was like, and we were just sitting here like, it's like, we had our stressful moments, don't get me wrong, but like most of the time we were laughing, and because there was such good energy around us all the time. And just knowing that like we like short circuited these people, like, with the TSA, our transportation security people in the airports, I wouldn't wear a mask anywhere I went. I couldn't at this point. Like we had taken such a hard stance that like, if I was compromising for my own sort of convenience, people would have tore me apart. So I had to travel, without a mask. And it was, sometimes I'd wind up driving, sometimes I'd get arrested or, detained. And eventually I got put on like this heightened security list, like they call it quad S's in the United States. And it's basically like the VIP treatment from TSA. Like they meet you at the door, like they know that you're coming to the airport. You're not allowed to check in virtually. You have to go and check in at the counter, so like you got to go to United Airways or whatever. And then they're like, please wait here. And then there's like 3 TSA agents, some dude in a suit. You get your own lane and they tear your stuff apart. Like they would take every article of clothing and like feel around the seams of like every pair of socks, underwear. They'd pull my shoes apart, everything. It would take hours every time. But eventually, and I would just be standing there like no mask, like, and people would be looking like, what the fuck is going on with this guy? And I'd be wearing like the gym shirt and they'd be like, oh, it's so-and-so, it's so-and-so. And you would see over time, like people would start to pull their masks off.
Yeah.
Because they're like, man, he's doing it. And look, like nothing's really happening. So they're letting him through, right? They're giving him a hard time, but they're letting him through. And eventually they had to move me to an entire different part of like the airport. Cause I'd fly out of Philadelphia all the time. So like they would have like, a lane here, a lane here, a lane here, and then shut like 6 lanes down and put me on the furthest one. So people couldn't see me because it was throwing them off. And then they would put me on like one of those like handicap carts, like, where they drive people, like the old people around the airport. They didn't want me walking around the airport. They would drive me right to the gate and they'd make me sit and wait like right at the gate. Cause it's like, they didn't want me walking around the airport, with no mask. And because it was such a disturbance to them and that they didn't know anything else to do. It's like, fuck, give them the VIP treatment. Let's get them through as quick as possible. and they stopped doing like the extra stuff. You know, they were like real quick, like, all right, let me shoot back. All right, cool. All right, get on the thing, go. And then they'd sit me like right next to the gate, and I couldn't move. I would just have to like sit there and wait. And I'd be like, all right, well, whatever. You know, I only got to show up at the airport 15 minutes early because you guys got to fast track me through. So it's just funny watching them just come unraveled. And when all you're doing is the right thing, like you're not harming anybody, you're just being yourself, you know, breathing air in that case.
Yeah. Man, can you talk about like what happened afterwards? Obviously, you got this newfound fame in a certain, you know, world and community. And it seemed like the right wing establishment wanted to prop you up as like the poster child. Can you talk a little bit about that and how things have unfolded from there?
Yeah. So, you know, I got sort of the right very much adopted us, you know, because they were the quote unquote, the call it the MAGA movement, was very much a large majority of the anti, you know, COVID movement. Not all of it, obviously there, you know, but I would say an overwhelming majority of the people identified as like Trump voters or whatever. So, you know, right away I started getting phone calls from just other people organizing, you know, hey, you know, we're at the Jersey Shore, you know, we'd love to come have you speak. You know, we're trying to get businesses to reopen. We're having a rally or this, or we're trying to pressure the mayor or whatever. Or, hey, we're fighting mask mandates for kids or whatever. So that became a way to keep and gain momentum with the gym, because it was like, hey, the gym guy's here. Oh, while we're at it, like, you know, let's go give them a follow on Instagram, or let's repost their story. And that, what Tucker gave us was that initial burst of movement. And then I really capitalized on, you know, life moves fast. You know, It's hard enough to keep track of your own life, let alone like that story about the gym in New Jersey. You know, that's just the way the world works. So we knew that we had to stay front and center. And I that was really what I did. So I went around and spoke. And I became a very, very in-demand speaker. I was traveling 4 months or 4 weeks out of the month, you know, on weekends, going to events. It was a way for me to fundraise for the gym too. Instead of like charging speaking fees, I would just say like, hey, you know, cover my travel costs and, you know, write a donation to the gym, whatever you want, you know? And then it became like MAGA sort of took over that movement, of the freedom movement. And it was like the anti-maskers / anti-vaxxers / you know, election integrity people. You know, I wound up speaking, at all 3 of the marches, down in DC after the election when, Donald Trump lost / was ripped off from an election. That was pretty crazy. You know, it was like I was getting these calls from these people that were like in the White House and in Trump's cabinet, and were like, yeah, we want you to come speak. And, you know, I remember going to Freedom Plaza, or Liberty Plaza, Freedom Plaza, one of those. It's in DC, and it's huge. And I remember getting up on stage there, and it was like, there were so many people that there wasn't, you couldn't look anywhere and not see somebody. Like the side streets had people pouring out of them. And it was a very, like, I mean, there was over 100,000 people at that one speech alone. And, you know, I spoke on January 5th. I was scheduled to speak on January 6th. You know, and the GOP, really adopted that, you know, the GOP as the establishment really adopted that anti-COVID narrative. Yeah. They didn't do much, but they adopted like the narrative, like the fighting back against COVID. You know, that's the political theater of it all, as I learned later. You know, so invitations to Mar-a-Lago, you know, people just wanted me in places, and the GOP really started, you know, they would hire me to come out, to speak at somebody's fundraiser and this and that. And a lot of the efforts were very good. They were very sincere, but a lot of it was very much establishment type stuff. And I didn't know the difference at that time. And I was like the golden pony, like, look, it's the gym owner. Because none of them, like I said, none of them were actually doing anything about COVID. You know, they'd have their hearings, and, you know, Jim Jordan would get up there and, you know, he'd own Fauci, but nothing would change. So they loved to have somebody like me who was actually doing something to make it seem like the GOP was actually on the side of regular people. Yeah, I mean, I I spoke pretty much everywhere. I spoke pretty much in all 50 states at some point, minus a few. And I started to realize more and more and more that like we have a politics problem in this country. That the system is not designed for regular people to win, and it's really designed to keep your eyes on this game where they're volleying the ball back and forth. Meanwhile, like the major issues that we actually have just go completely untouched. Things like national debt. Like you don't hear Democrats or Republicans talking about that other than when they want to raise it. When it comes to sending your kids to war, they seem to fall on the same side. When it comes to sending billions of dollars of your taxpayer money, to shithole countries that have nothing to do with what we're doing, that's something they can agree on. But they'll keep you fighting over abortion. They'll keep you fighting over like race issues. They'll keep you fighting over, whatever. So I just started to like see it for what it was. And at the tail end of COVID, as we started to wrap it up and it was like clear that these people had sort of punched themselves into fatigue. I thought to myself, I was like, all right, like what do I do now? Like, am I just going to go back to being a gym owner and like just pretend that like this is over when I know it's not, or do I, how do I continue the fight? Like they're not attacking me anymore. So like, where do I go? And I just remember being like, man, it always feels like as regular people, we're always like running to respond to bad government, right? Like we're always like running to the fight. We're never like on war footing. We're always like, oh crap, like we got to stop this bill, or like, oh my God, we got to do this. Like it's never from an offensive position. We're never on war footing. We're never coming after them. We're always trying to stop something from happening. Oh, they're infringing upon this right. Well, they're infringing upon this right. And I just remember being like, man, that is not a winning strategy for us. Like eventually people just get fatigued, from running from battle to battle, and barely making it. So I said, what if I run for office? Or what if I try to change the system from the inside? I mean, I don't really know what I thought, but I was like, maybe I just bring it to them. Like maybe if nothing else, I will expose the underbelly of what this all really is. Maybe I'll show people what it's like to have a real politician, like somebody who's like, hey, this is really fucking inconvenient. Like I have better things to do, but I'm going to give you 4 years of my life and then I'm out. Like, and I don't want to do this anymore. I'm going to go back to my normal life, but I'll give service to my community. Right. Because that's the fundamental problem, is that we have people who make careers out of politics. And they have no interest in doing any better, because if they solve problems, then they don't have a job.
Yeah.
So I said, all right, I'll run for Congress. And I made the decision to run for Congress, and very clearly my suspicions that the GOP was not freedom friendly, I guess you could call it. It was proven to me that theory was correct. The GOP ran harder against me than they ran against the Democrats. They had the same messaging as the Democrats. And these were people who like literally like were like, oh, the gym guy. And then it was like, well, the gym guy's running for Congress and he's a little rambunctious and we don't like him.
Did you run independently?
No, I ran under the Republican Party.
Okay, cool.
And we gave them hell. We really did. They ran from us at every turn. Like they had this like, and they even told us, they said, give it 4 more years. We've got to run this guy because his dad, was a big donor and this and that. And he's kind of next in line.
Wow.
The dude was like literally a slice of white bread in the suit, like no flavor, no personality, didn't have any stance on anything. Like it was like, oh, well, what does my voters or what do my donors want? Like if you ask him a question, his answer was always based on like what he should say.
Yeah.
Not what he felt. I remember stuff like, I would give these answers, there was this one, and this is, these are all like instances where I'm like, oh man, this is BS. Like, we're here and there's 3 of us running in the primary, and it's this big convention in one of the bigger towns, and it's like a packed house. And it was right at the onset of the Ukraine war. And we spent like 15 minutes of this. Like, we had some lady up there and she was like singing the Ukrainian national anthem. And like, I'm like, what is going on here? Like, where are our priorities? And one of the questions, there was like a panel, after we all sort of introduced ourselves. And one of the questions was like, I don't even remember what it was. And I was like, it was something about the Ukraine war, and like everybody else answered, they're like, oh, we must stand with our allies, like the generic, politician response. And I'm like, America first. Like, that's my answer. Like, anything that you ask me policy wise, I'm going to view it through the lens of how does this impact Americans first. And I said, right now, we're not going to send billions of dollars anywhere. So no, I'm going to vote no. I said, I don't care about Ukraine. I'm sorry that they're going through what they're going through. It's 10,000 miles away from here. Like, but I don't care. I don't care what you think about Putin. I don't care what you think about any of that. All I care about is the people in New Jersey that would elect him. And the crowd like went wild. But all of the political operatives, like the people that really run politics, right? So it's not about the politicians, it's about all these people that get people elected. They were all like, what the, they were like, whoa, like, we didn't think he was going to say that. And the whole rest of that night, they all left. Like, all the other candidates left because everybody wanted to talk about, they wanted real answers. And none of these guys, they were like short circuiting. So right away it was clear to the GOP. And after that, I was out of grace with the GOP. They were like, no, they held their, they call it giving the line. And that means like who the GOP supports as their candidate, like the local, GOP. And the state, and they didn't even vote. They just gave it to this guy.
What?
And then they just gave it to him. Like, normally there's like this informal vote. It's like yays and nays. They just gave it to him. And then we would, we'd have all these events where this township would host an event, and this township would host an event. And there's all these little committees and stuff. And they kept bringing this guy. What was his name? Bob Healy. And he would like flop in front of these people, like just couldn't look you in the eye, couldn't have a conversation. So I kept getting these backdoor calls where it was like, hey, we had Bob here, and we know he's like the candidate, because that's where like you get fundraising money and stuff like that, and you meet people and you answer questions and go to dinners and whatever, you be a politician.
One big circle jerk.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. But that's how they generate the money and the excitement and the name. They're like, hey, we had Bob like last week, and like, I don't know, like, there's a bunch of people who keep asking about you, and so do you want to come out? Like, we'll host another dinner. And I would like blow the roof off of these places. And then eventually Bob stopped showing up. There was a parade. I think it was like Memorial Day parade or whatever the first holiday in the summer is, Memorial Day. Yeah. And this town, the biggest township in our county was going to have Bob, and somebody had the idea like, hey, let's get all of them here. Like, let's get Ian, and the other guy's name was Nick. Let's get Ian and Nick here. And Nick was going somewhere else. And I was like, yeah, I'll show up. Like, yeah, you want me to march in the parade? Like, let's do it. Bob dropped out. He was like, I'm going to go somewhere else. So they were basically running from us because the contrast between he and I was so blatantly obvious, like physically, but like also just in terms of like confidence and charisma. So they just did the Joe Biden strategy. They just outspent us like 11-1, and all they did was trash me. And I'm an easy target. I'm an easy target. I've been 6 years in prison. I'm not your clean cut kind of politician. I curse. I go to the casino and gamble. Like I'm not that, I'm not the guy that's not gonna, or I'm not they want somebody that's like a polished turd, somebody that can they can just like put a little buffer on, and like, and I was just trying to be as real as possible. And we gave them hell. We got about 40% of the vote in a 3-way race, but ultimately we couldn't keep up with the machine. And I really walked away from that with a not even like a sour taste in my mouth, because I don't care enough about these people to not like them. But just understanding that like this system is not gonna make you free at all. Like, I always say it, it's my motto, but like nobody's coming to save you. Like you're not gonna vote. No matter how much you like Donald Trump, he's not gonna save you. No matter how much you like, this person, and you think that they say the things that make you happy, and they're not gonna save you, even if they want to. Like you've really got to be in control of your own life. I spent the better part of a year, 2 years, 3 years, waiting for like Donald Trump to fix this, right? Like, and you still see it today. Like you see it in the United States. Like everybody's like, oh, Trump's just going to get reelected. And it's like, maybe, but like last time he was elected, there was a lot of things he left, like that vaccine still came rolling out. Like the country's still shut down. So what are we waiting for? And that's really the turning, like the point for me where I was like, yeah, politics is meant to sort of distract and divide. And it couldn't have been more obvious, because as I started to get away from GOP politics and just move towards people who like take their lives into their own hands, the more I realized that like, oh man, this really divided us. Like this has gotten like hyper divisive to where it's such a game that is played, and it's hard not to get sucked into it because it's all emotionally charged. But man, it is not the way forward. At all.
Yeah, it's so all consuming, and it just siphons everyone's energy, and it's like an endless maze that goes absolutely fucking nowhere. Yeah, continually, time and time again. Everyone just plays this game, so eager to play this game.
Yeah, you play the game, and it's exhausting. Like it drains you because it's driven by like emotion, and that's not to say that politics isn't important. It is important, but like the politics that you're fed it's just a hamster wheel, like you're just running as hard as you can. And, the same person controls both wheels, and they're poking both sides, at the same time. And, once you see it for what it is, it's like, you can't take it seriously. And it just becomes like a joke. It's like, this is theater at best, bad theater.
Well, if you have enough awareness and you can look back, 12 years, 16 years, 20 years, you just see the same stuff happening during these, ritualistic cycles where people are just propping up my guy's going to do the thing. My team is going to win. And then, no, my team. And it's just the same thing over and over and over again. It has not changed since I was a kid, ever.
Well, you remember like post 9/11, right? And it's like, that was a red flag for me, even though I was young, but it was like Islamic terrorism, and it was like this big threat. And then then for the longest time, it was like, oh, they got their war over there, and they got what they wanted over there. And it's like, but it's not really a threat anymore. Now, all of a sudden we're right back where like Islamic terrorism is like high up on the list. And you see the people who,
and there was not a single mention of terrorism between 2020 and 2023.
Exactly. And even more, like you go back, even go to 2004, they stopped talking about it. They would talk about it a little bit, but like now it's red alert. It's Islamic terrorism. And the people that were going to save you from COVID now are the people that want to send you to war. And the people that wanted you, to wear your mask and to ruin your life for COVID now are protesting the war. And it's like, wait a second, like you guys are on the same side here. Like, and it's really, really obvious, because it's just a matter of like they're volleying that ball back and forth. One side takes control and you get the right, which brings in like more sort of like police state, like authoritarianism. And then it gets like kicked over to the left, and it's like, well, we'll spend a bunch of your money. We'll do all these programs. We'll increase crime a little bit so that when, the right comes back in, people are begging, oh, please put police on the subways. Please put checkpoints up. Please give those digital ID. And it's, once you see it, it's just like, oh man, like you guys are on the same side, and it's so obvious.
Trust the plan, bro. Trust the plan.
I mean, that's another example. It's like, yeah, trust the plan. So it's like just sit around and wait, until 2025 or whatever. And then 2025 comes rolling in and it's going to be like, we need digital ID. And everybody's going to be like, we need digital ID. You know what I mean? And these are the people that were like, oh, a mask is an infringement upon my rights. And it's like, you not see.
People forget so easily.
It is. Yeah. And it's, as long as the propaganda machine is crazy, because it operates in the same way every time. Like the same mechanisms get and the levers get pulled. The media kicks in, the big corporations chip in, they put up a hashtag and they'll donate a part of your proceeds to whatever this cause is. And it's like, but the same levers that were pulled to get people to believe COVID are the same people, or the same levers that got pulled to get people to believe BLM are the same levers that get pulled to get people to buy Ukraine, are the same levers that get pulled to get you to believe that you need digital ID, and it's, so,
and that lever isn't only being pulled to get you to believe those things, but to get another certain group of people so emotionally charged against those things.
Yes. And it's just a matter of like, if those levers emotionally impact you, that was always the funniest thing for me, is like, you see people who are like, they were so against COVID and vaccines, and then they believed the same sources when it came to Ukraine. Like, you just said that these people couldn't be trusted. You just spent 2 years saying that the media is like the fake media and this and that. And now, because they have a red tie on instead of a blue tie, and it's Fox and not NBC.
Yeah.
Now they're telling the truth, and now you should go, but it's just a matter of like, what can they get out of you emotionally? And you have to remove the emotion from them, or you're forever going to be a victim of whatever they decide that you're going to be a victim of.
Yeah. Lifelong manipulation.
Yeah. And this is where you have to take ownership over your mind, over your body, over your spirit, have discernment, do the work necessary to stay grounded emotionally, so you're not just a ping pong ball going back and forth. I mean, again, it's an individual journey. You have to do the fucking work. You have to be able to stand in that tornado and like maybe see a news clip or something shows up on your Instagram algorithm and notice like, what's happening inside of me. I feel like this pull to want to identify with this team or to get sucked back into this tribalist mentality. But can you not? Can you notice it and then go, okay, I see what's happening here. Let me wait. I don't need to make a decision immediately based on this. Which is, again, in our world now, it's like they want you to pick a side immediately.
Yeah. And people want to pick a side immediately because they don't, I think there's a tendency, I think we've grown lazy, as a whole, lazy physically, but like really lazy, like mentally, spiritually, and intellectually, where it's like, we don't want to think about it too hard.
Yeah.
Like, I just want my team and my guy to tell me how I should react to this. Right. I don't want to look at something and be like, all right, let me spend a couple hours reading about this. Like, let me really dig into this immigration issue, or whatever it is. Or let me really dig into like, what is this current thing that I'm being shown, and be like, I break rank. I'm still right leaning, in terms of political ideology, but I break rank with the right all the time. I've lost 100,000 followers since the Ukraine war. Between Ukraine and Israel. I mean, it's like, apparently I support hummus. It's like
hummus is delicious, bro.
Yeah, hummus. I was about to say, I love hummus, dude. Baba ganoush. No, that's okay, but I like hummus more.
And it's
big fan.
That's always how I mock them. I'm like, I love hummus. But it's like, you have to be able to break rank. And it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. It's like, do you value the truth or not? And if you do, then you have an obligation. You have an obligation to yourself, but you have an obligation to others as well to figure out what that truth really is, and not just, I don't care if it comes from your guy or not. I don't care if it's pleasant or not. Like, you've got to really put in that work on that individual level, or you will forever be a victim of, the world will blow you around like a plastic bag in the wind. You will have no real control over your life. And the moment that you realize that strength and put in that work, because it isn't easy, it is hard. Mm-hmm. It's much easier to sort of be an NPC and just kind of be, just blowing around in the wind, and hopefully your side's winning for a while, and when they're not, you just bitch with everybody else. And I hear that with the right now. It's like everybody's like, oh, the economy and this, and it's like blah blah, and everybody's in such like a negative headspace all the time. And it's like, it's not to say like, yeah, groceries are more expensive. That is absolutely true. Like, I'm not disputing that, but like, you're a victim of it instead of looking for solutions, instead of, being proactive. It's just this like, oh, well, we just gotta hang tight until 2025, Trump 2024, save America.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, save yourself.
You have to have individual purpose, which supersedes all this bullshit.
Yeah.
It's something that you can wake up every single day.
Yeah.
You can wake up every single day and feed your energy and feed your life force into something that is, truly great and meaningful and purposeful to you. And if not, you're constantly going to be siphoned by this overarching machine, which was nothing other than to completely deplete you and have you nullified against any real, threat.
Yeah. And it turns you into like a worker bee.
Yeah.
You're not, you don't have your own project. You don't have your own passion. You're not filling your own cup. Like you're always like pouring out into the world instead of, all right, food prices are terrible. Like, hey, how about you learn beekeeping? I don't know. And if you don't like that, then I don't know, get some chickens, or, whatever. How about you call 3 of your friends who are also upset about, the cost of food, and how about you guys split a cow?
Yeah, man. Dude, we
learn how to hunt too.
But like what's
anything?
Yeah, what's underlying all of this is that we've been conditioned, like just with so much apathy, that we're helpless beings, and it's like, and the truth is now, like this vice of laziness is so prevalent that most people are helpless. They literally do not feel as though they can be self-responsible to sustain their own lives and to create meaning and to bring purpose, and that needs to come from an external source, and like starts, man.
That is probably the number one objection I get. The message that I try to put out these days, and I've definitely fallen victim to that, like doom scrolling, where I'm like, oh my God, like look what the Democrats are doing. And eventually I kind of like shook out of that. But the number one, so the message that I put out is always like, hey, nobody's coming to save you. Nobody's coming to save you. Nobody's coming to save you. Nobody's coming to save you.
Yeah.
And people get angry when I say that. Yeah. And they're like, well, what are we supposed to do? Like, it's like, you're supposed to take control. Like you're supposed to go, oh, nobody's coming to save me. So that means I got to save myself. Well, okay, cool. Like, so it's up to me. It's up to my choices. It's up to how I wake up every day and spend my time. It's up to what I put in my body, and physically, intellectually, emotionally. So I'm in complete control. It's what you're saying. Yeah. And people are like, that should be like, well, cool. Well, great. Like,
yeah.
I didn't realize I was in control.
To the like high self-esteem individual, that's a very empowering, I've got the control. Yeah. It's up to me. I can make the decisions.
Wait, this is my life? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And that's what it should be. And people react to that. And I think that there's definitely a trend moving in that direction where people are starting to realize that. But they still, the overwhelming majority of people are offended by that, because again, the number one comment I get is like, well, what should we do? And it's like, I don't know, man. I don't know anything about you. I'll tell you, but like kind of a little bit what I'm doing. I moved out of New Jersey. I bought myself some land. Oh, well, I can't do that. Well, I couldn't do it either. I figured it out. Like, and yeah, it took some sacrifices, but hey, my family's a lot better off than they were 6 months ago. And we're a hell of a lot happier, and we're around a different culture that pours into us. And it was hard. It's stressful, like I didn't have a mortgage where I was at. I owned my house. I have a mortgage. Okay.
Yeah,
I can handle that. What else can I handle? And then it's just like that same idea we touched on earlier, where it's like, once you face the fear, you start realizing how strong you are. Once you start doing things for yourself, you realize like, oh, I'm not completely indigent. Like I can do this. I can, oh, wow, I can lose a couple pounds and get in shape. Well, what else can I do?
Yeah.
Like, oh, I can, manage my finances a little bit better. What else can I do?
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, very quickly too, is you're living a completely different life than you were just a couple months ago.
Yeah. It compounds very quickly. Compounds very, very quickly. Yeah.
But this is the heroic path.
Yeah.
Everything we're talking about, you need to go out and go to battle. It's like the day-to-day stuff too. Like, how are you standing up for yourself? Are you taking care of your health? Are you meeting these challenges face on? Are you remaining a victim, or are you not? Are you being courageous? I mean, what you said before, it's not about not feeling the fear. It's about feeling the fear and still taking action, towards higher purpose. And that's courage and bravery.
Yeah. Are you taking action in accordance with what you claim you truly value? And before that, do you know what you actually value? Because otherwise your decision making is going to be completely like all over the place. But once you know what you value, then it's very clear what path you need to walk. For me, it's like, I made the decision in Australia in 2021, like if I could ever leave this place, that I'm going to leave. I don't want to be at the whim of the Australian government. Like I saw how corrupt and how horrible that was. And so, we built an online business, and last year I moved to Mexico. I live in Playa del Carmen now, and, I don't have to deal with the Australian government. I'm not worried about what happens there anymore. Just like we have to take that action and make those decisions in accordance with what we truly want out of life.
Yeah. And I think you mentioned probably the most important part is like, it's like a know thyself kind of thing. Like what do I value?
Yeah.
Right. Because a lot of the times the things that, and I can, speak from personal experience, like a lot of the things that I valued, I didn't actually value, especially in my younger years, like the status of, being a guy that could like get girls or like was appeared tough, right? Like it was like, how much weight can I lift? How big can I get in order to just appear tough, not be tough, not do hard things. It was like, how can I look like that? And I didn't actually value those things because they never really brought me much. Right. And as you get older, or at least as I got older, I started to figure it out, but it's not something that you have to wait for age to do. It's just a quiet conversation that you need to have with yourself. And a lot of times those conversations are very scary. Again, going back to this idea of fear. So, when I was in prison, I got put in solitary confinement for a while. And that was a life-changing experience because locked in a cell for 24 hours a day with nobody to talk to, with nothing to distract you, no pen, no paper, no television, no radio, no music, no internet. You're just there with yourself. You realize that you haven't had a conversation with yourself at least I did. I realized I hadn't had a conversation with myself in a very, very long time, if ever. And if I did, it wasn't an honest conversation, so I was forced to where I couldn't run away from it. I wasn't going anywhere. I was there for quite a while. And the silence starts to get overwhelmingly loud, like deafening. And then like that internal dialogue, you can't pick up your phone and distract yourself from it anymore. Like there's nothing that you can't run. And I remember those days I learned truly about who I was and like what I actually valued, and I looked back, I was very lonely. And I had to be really honest with myself. And it was like, man, I was so popular, right? On the outside, I had all these cool friends and I was invited to cool parties and this and that. And, all these girls liked me. And it was like, well, none of them are writing you fucking letters, are they? So is that something you value? And then I thought about it. I'm like, man, I have a really awesome family. Like I'm really close with my cousins. I've got 5 cousins from one of my uncles, and like, they have always been there for me. And they always cared about me and they always supported me and they always, and I thought about my mother and stuff like that. And it's like, man, that's what I value. Like, that's the real stuff. And you start to have that conversation and there's no path, you just start it. There's no set of questions. You just get to know yourself. And once you do, and you really, again, be honest, everything gets really clear all of a sudden. Like your actions moving forward, the decisions that you have to make as the world comes at you become very obvious, because you've done that initial work to figure out what your value system is. Now it's just a matter of putting rubber to the road and acting on it. And that's the easy part. The hard part and the problem, the reason that people struggle is because they don't know where the rubber hits the road. They don't know where the road, they don't know what road they're on. They don't know where they're going. And that, I think, is a huge problem for just people in general. Is we're so distracted just by the world around us, all of the easy things. It's super easy to pick up your phone and get lost in social media for a half hour just scrolling through reels. It's not easy to sit in silence for 30 seconds or 30 minutes, 30 seconds, and really have a meaningful conversation with yourself where you figure out not only values, but problems you have, deficiencies in your character and where you are lacking. It sounds weird, but man, you could change the world if you lock people up and stick them in a cell by themselves, for a couple months. People will generally come out of there better, because you're forced into it, and it's a painful thing, but it is an absolutely life-changing and beautiful and positive thing. It's just there's an initial sacrifice that you have to pay, and that's that pain of honesty, I think, with yourself.
Well said, bro. Man, most people can't even just sit on the couch by themselves, just sitting there without a TV, without a book, without their phone. So let alone, solitary confinement. But I agree with you. I mean, you have to be able to be present with yourself, feel your pain, get 100% real in order to have the motivation to make changes. But most people are just keeping that pain subsided with every single distraction, every single addiction. They're self-medicating in so many different ways. And you can't do that when you're, in solitary confinement or you're just with yourself.
Nope.
Yeah. Thank you, government.
Yeah. You turned me into a true monster. Thank you.
Yeah, but even what you say earlier about hey, my hero's journey started at a certain point, but dude, even then, you're in solitary confinement and you're getting real and you're learning things about yourself, and that's part of this journey and this growth, that I think has turned you into who you are. Would you have again, I have no idea, we don't know, but would you have done what you did during COVID if you didn't have those 6 years in prison?
Probably not. That while that was the worst thing I've ever done, get me there, and the worst thing that ever happened to me, it was also probably something that saved me from the trajectory I was on. I don't know if the train would have stopped at the next station for a turnaround. I think it probably would have just kept going.
Yeah.
It was like a brick wall in my path that I couldn't go further. And chances are, if I had continued on that path, I certainly wouldn't be here in the capacity that I am today, in terms of who I am. But I mean, there's a strong likelihood I wouldn't even be here in general.
Awesome, man. I love the way you see the world, bro. I'm grateful for the experiences that you've had, and I'm honored to have shared this conversation with you. Thank you so much for joining us. Just briefly, I got a quick question, as briefly as you can. What happened with the gym?
So after all of it, 90 municipal citations, 5 criminal charges, distance between both of us, $15,000 a day fine for, let's just say 9 months or whatever. So a couple $1 million in fine. They seized $200,000 from us. They took our business licenses away. They shut off our plumbing and our electric, or they tried. They arrested us. They boarded up our doors. They changed our lock. All of that. Eventually, they got tired of doing all that, because we would just show the world. I would just be like, "Hey, Tucker, I need to come on the show," and then I would have my opportunity, and that was that was our biggest weapon, is that we were able to show people. Eventually they had enough egg on their face, because every time they would do something, they would either piss people off more, or they would piss more people off. They see, like, when they see $200,000 from our bank account, they pissed off the entire cryptocurrency community.
Mhm.
And these were people who were like, hey, like, whatever, lockdowns, no lockdowns. Maybe they didn't have a stance on it. And then they were like, wait, the government took your money? Oh, like, no way. And then they were supporters. So it got to the point where they couldn't do anything anymore. It got kicked into courts, and it slowed down, like, just majorly. We wound up spending about $750,000 on court costs. We were in like 5 different courts at once. And we were losing everything. You know, we lost every single. We actually didn't speak in court on our own behalf, other than one time in municipal court. We would just be on Zoom and they would mute us. So it was just a total joke. And eventually they just kind of ran out of steam. The municipality that took our business licenses, about 2 years after the original shutdown, they came in, the lawyer came in, and the mayor came in, talked to our lawyer, and he said, like, how long are these guys going to keep this up for? And our lawyer, like, laughed. He was like forever? I mean, like they're not going to stop, you know, like, it's 2 years. Like, what do you think, they're going to quit now? And the mayor said, they're hurting the township because this is costing the taxpayers money. And we were just like, dude, like, you did it. Like, just give us our business licenses back. And like, we don't want you. It's not you who we're after. Like, you were just following orders. Like, get out of our way. And 2 businesses licenses appeared a week later. And we were able to legally be back in business. So we went back to business normally. For 2 years, we didn't charge anybody. It was run off donations and t-shirt sales. And that's right around the time that I ran for Congress. And my partner and I had just different views on how to proceed forward. And I certainly understand why he felt the way he did, but I didn't agree with it. For me, that was the win. You tried to shut us down. You did everything you possibly could. And, you didn't. For him, he wanted retribution. And I certainly understand that, but I didn't see it being a real possibility. Or I didn't see it being a venture that was worth it. You know, we were in state courts fighting the state with judges that are appointed and not elected, in a system that's not designed for you to win.
Yeah.
You know, so after I ran for Congress, I sold the gym to him, and I moved on to some other ventures. The gym is alive and well today. We still have, like, court issues, but they don't want to resolve them. You know, like, all those municipal charges, they're still there, and nobody wants to touch it. It got kicked into another township, blah, 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 because we were suing the township that we were in. Nobody wants to touch it. It's just been sitting. They know that they're wrong. So when the courts move against you, they move very quickly. When you move against the courts, things grind to a halt. And, so we have just some minor issues to unravel, but it's done and over with. These people will never, I don't believe that they'll fully face judgment, at least not in a legal sense. Karma gets to people. So, they'll live crappy lives in some respect, but I moved on. I started some other businesses. I moved to Florida, and life is good, but the gym is alive and well. They're still the same atmosphere, same people that were there and fought. Now it's just a regular gym, and people living their lives free as we intended when we started the business.
Awesome, bro.
Yeah.
Well, man, how can our audience support you? How can they get in touch with everything you're up to and what you're doing? Any offers you have, man? Please let them know.
You can find me on social media. It's the same handle everywhere. It's Ian Smith Fitness. That's Twitter, Instagram, whatever else there is. I run a channel on Telegram. It's called the Prepared Citizens. It's a skills-based group, learning just important skills on how to navigate the world. Things like growing food, things like preparing food, financial savviness in a complicated world. And I wrote a book. If you're interested in reading it, it's kind of the story we talked about today. I talk more about the mistakes I made in the past. Like I said, it's super easy to tell a story of when you're good. The purpose of writing the book, for anybody who doesn't read it and wants the short version, is that, you're never beyond redemption. I lived a bad life for a very long time, and you're only one choice away from being a better person. And it took me 33 years to make that real right choice. But when I did, it radically changed my life in ways that I could spend hours telling you about. But you don't have to go through all of that. Trust me. You make a good choice and you'll watch your life flourish. Everybody that I've ever met from the COVID era who made hard choices, their life is better. I think both of you guys can testify to that.
Yeah.
People I know who lost their job because they stood ground, over a vaccine are now business owners today or in a much better place. So, the book is just about encouraging people to step into their true power. And that book is called Find Your Hill. You can find it at findyourhill.com. I send out copies myself. So I'll sign a copy for you. Send a note with the purchase if you want me to personalize it or anything like that. It's also available on Amazon, but you won't get a signed copy. And that's really it. That's what I'm up to. So
Love it, bro.
Yeah.
Man, grateful to connect, grateful to have this conversation. Wish you nothing but the best and can't wait till we cross paths in person again.
yeah, man. I'll see you guys soon. Thank
sure.
you very much.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Stay tuned for the wrap up. Peace.
Legend.
Legend, man. Absolute legend. I love that conversation. It was so nice to kind of, go take a little trip down memory lane and like all the very visceral emotions that come back up, remembering how ridiculous a lot of that was and, also being able to honor those who were able to see through the bullshit and stand their ground and make hard decisions and come out the other side thriving.
Yeah, I'm happy we had that conversation too, because I get it. We have to move on and do our things, but I think it's important to highlight and take that trip on memory lane and realize what happened. Because again, we have such short-term memories. People forget. They don't even know what they did last week, let alone 4 years ago or 10 years ago or 20 years ago. And so to see what was happening and to experience someone's story firsthand, who became someone who, was thrust into the spotlight because of one choice.
Yeah.
One choice that he made to stand up for something, to stand up for truth, to stand up for integrity, to stand up for something that he believed was right. And,
Yeah, man. And we're all presented with those choices in so many different contexts throughout our life, like the authoritarian figure, the government can be represented in a myriad of ways, whether it's parental, whether it's, in a workplace, whether it's with our friends, but it's like, where is your power being taken away from you? Where are you afraid to speak your truth? Where are you afraid to make a choice that's really in alignment with your highest values and your highest path? And there you will very quickly realize what's holding you back and who's holding you back. And when you go to consider what it would mean to make that choice, to stand up to the bully, to choose something different, like you'll know because the fear is going to come up, but the truth is going to come up as well.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there, man. And it's like, what comes up when you go closer towards the truth? What do you need to deal with? What's happening within your system, within your body, within your nervous system, within your thinking? And again, it doesn't have to be like, hey, the cavalry is outside your business. It might be, but bring it back to your life. What's that conversation you're not having with your husband or your wife or your mother or your father or your boss? Your friend, who's taking advantage of you. These are the things like, how do you set a boundary? How do you set a clear boundary and assert yourself and speak your needs out? Like, this is an important part of being a person of high self-esteem, of living a heroic path, of standing for yourself and knowing yourself.
Yeah. And there's so much growth and evolution available on the other side of those decisions, so we all have to choose our hard, and there's plenty, the options surround us daily. And like I mentioned, where the obstacle is, very much so there is the way, because it's by diving deep into that challenge, by choosing something new, by walking the path that's less trodden, that you're going to be given the opportunity to discover your power and to wield it appropriately, so then you can use it and move in service of what truly matters to you. And ultimately, that's what we're all called here to do. No one's here to just live a cushy life floating around on a cloud, being pampered in full convenience 24/7. Like, sometimes I wish that's what this experience was meant to be, but it's simply not the case. So yeah, moving towards potential, moving towards growth, going to require you to learn new things, to face new challenges, to exert effort mentally, physically. But there's always so much fortune on the other side of those decisions.
Yeah, I agree, man. And I loved what he said about all the people that he knows that had to make a tough decision, that had to go against the grain, that stood up for themselves. Because there are many people who have that part of them that goes, oh, I shouldn't be doing that. I don't want to do that. I want to do the right thing. But then another part comes in and goes, no, you're going to go along to get along. You're going to submit to authority. You're going to just, keep a low profile, not disturb the peace. But the people that do, and we see it with the people that we're friends with, that we connect with in our worlds, in our communities. And it's like people who said no. I mean, again, that word that we talk about often, those two letters, N-O, two of the most powerful letters that exist.
Yeah.
To be able to say no. And what will then that do to your life, to your relationships?
Totally. Guys, if you're wanting to go down this path, if you're wanting to level up and be supported intellectually, spiritually, somatically, on all levels, to move towards your highest potential, and to unlock your gifts and really walk that path and live a life that inspires you and makes you excited to wake up and face your challenges and build your self-esteem and grow your skill level and, create a life that's truly meaningful to you and is a reflection of who you really are. And this is absolutely the final curtain call for Rise Above the Herd round 9. Yerasimos and I have been discussing, and we're considering taking a little hiatus from Rise Above the Herd to maybe make it a longer program, adjust a few things, tweak some things. So it's more than likely at this point that this will be the final time that Rise Above the Herd is available in its current iteration. So if you're down, this podcast is coming out on Sunday, the 24th of March. Doors for Rise Above the Herd round 9 are going to close at 11:59 p.m. PST on Tuesday, I believe, or Wednesday.
Yeah, Wednesday, I believe.
Wednesday.
Ultimately. But yeah, again, like I just want to highlight, and it relates to a lot of stuff in the episode. If you're tired of bullshitting yourself, not being real with yourself, if there's those crevices in your consciousness that you're not paying attention to, but you know deep down that there needs to be changes and there's shifts that need to be done in your life. Like, I mean, go to, again, riseabovetheherd.co, read all the testimonials, over 100 students, 100 people that have taken this program already that have had powerful results. And, this is what I love to do. This is what Joel loves to do. We just want to help people and support people to really, truly live that heroic path and know themselves and value themselves and stand for their truth and create amazing lives that they're proud of and that they love and that are fulfilling and satisfying. So we'd love to see you in the next cohort. And like Joel said, we don't really know when we're going to be doing the next one, but yeah, would love to continue this journey with you.
Smoking mirrors, I'm seeing through the illusion. Waking up in a time they think you're in a delusion. Somebody set the alarms, cause they be too busy snoozing. I'm in a DeLorean. Fast forward.